One fall morning, a teacher shops for groceries on her way to work. It is a journey into the unknown.
I really think there's a lot of people out there that don't have an idea about where their food comes from and what kinds of things are put on their food. I have a hard time shopping because I'm looking for things that tell me that there aren't any, chemicals on it. And I'm also I'm trying to find stuff that's made in Michigan. Then with meats and stuff, I'm looking for meats that don't have anything in it, no hormones and no antibiotics, and so it's hard to find that stuff. I used to just get on Google and I used to put in organic foods and search, and I would get a lot of information, but nothing that connected me with anybody.
"100 miles to the south, farmers come early to sell at the Benton Harbor Fruit Market.
This is a venue where small and mid-sized family farm operations come to directly sell fresh produce to buyers, mostly of an independent nature. It's food that's fresh and healthy and nutritious. It's ready to eat. It doesn't have a long shelf life, and shelf life is everything for these major chains. It has to be because most of the food is being shipped from well over 1,500 miles from producer to consumer. We've lost the local nature of our food system. 25, 30 years ago, there were lots of opportunities for these small and mid-sized family farming operations to market their crops because there were more mom and pop grocery stores. The local citizenry had access to local food. Right now, they don't have that access. It's not the consumer's fault. You can't buy what isn't on the shelf.
I was in a local grocery store a few weeks ago and I found some piece of produce from China. And I thought, how long ago was this picked? What was put on this to make it possible to ship from so far away? And what are the implications of not having locally grown food and access to locally grown food?
How did this disconnect between consumers and family farms come about? What has happened to our community-based food system? And with its disappearance, what will we eat? This is the story of how we lost access to healthy local food and how we are getting it back. The story begins 60 years ago at the end of the Second World War.
Immediately after the war, there was this rapid growth of what we frequently call the Green Revolution.
The Green Revolution replaced the raising of diverse crops on small farms with the mechanized raising of standardized monocultures on large farms. Starting in about 1950, these new monocultures used chemicals to manage the natural processes of crop and animal agriculture. The Green Revolution turned the farm into a kind of factory.
We really try to make that production operation operate as if it were a factory. As I said, we try to turn a farm into a factory without a roof, and we try to make a field or a feedlot function as a biological assembly line.
Yields increased dramatically in the short run. In 1970, the Nobel Prize Committee estimated the Green Revolution saved 1 billion people from starvation in the quarter century after World War II. Today, using these chemical-intensive industrial techniques, U.S. farmers continue to produce record amounts of wheat, corn, rice, and soybeans. But these increased yields have come at a cost.
We've had tremendous benefits from making agriculture more efficient. It's just that we didn't anticipate the negative consequences with respect to the degradation of the rural environment and the depletion of the fertility of the soil and the degradation of the rural community and the demise of the family farm.
One measure of industrialization's impact on family farms can be seen in this small-town Iowa parade. For just as the size of tractors has increased in the last half-century, so too has the size of farms. From 1997 to 2002, 58,000 medium-sized family farms disappeared as neighboring farms got larger. But even this increase in scale has not meant success for the survivors.
Farmers have been successful in increasing their productivity, increasing their gross income, but they've had to spend all of their gross income in order to maintain their production, and so their net incomes remain flat, which means they're going out of business.
If we could get our fair share back in the marketplace, the small family farm could survive. I guess I am upset that I'm getting out. I'd sure love to continue to raise, my children on a farm and continue the way of life, knowing I'm doing something for the world. I'm producing food.
And so when the families can no longer make a living on the farm, then the rural communities decay. And all of this is a consequence of the industrialization of agriculture through going through specialized, standardized, larger, more centrally controlled, consolidated farming operations.
There was another consequence, one that touched consumers. Factory farming damaged the health and productivity of the natural environment, threatening human health in the process.
I think the industrial model is fundamentally in conflict with living processes. We've taken something that's fundamentally a living system, a biological system, a social system, and we've treated it as if it were a dead mechanistic system.
Can the current form of agriculture continue to feed the world? From what I see, no, it cannot, because of the continuing loss of biological diversity, loss of soil health, because of all the synthetic chemicals, the high rate of application.
It can't go on. The future of standard agriculture is very limited. It's coming where they won't be able to put on enough chemicals on the fields to keep continuously growing the crops at the volume that they're doing.
Scientists have determined that if we continue in our current mode in agriculture, energy, etc., the amount of nitrogen pollution will double in the next 25 years. The planet cannot handle that. The recycling systems will break down.
The breakdown has already begun. Right now, the Earth's oceans have 150 oxygen-deprived dead zones, caused in part by nutrient runoff from industrial farming.
The planet is getting so damaged. The spread of synthetic chemicals in the atmosphere, on the land, in the surface and subsurface waters. People are realizing, especially mothers, they're concerned about their children and being permanently damaged with their health throughout their whole life.
This massive use of chemicals in agriculture has reached into another sea of life, the womb. A 2005 study of the blood in the umbilical cords of newborn babies found an average of 200 industrial chemicals present, including 21 from organochlorine pesticides used in agriculture. Some of these agricultural chemicals cause cancer. Some affect human reproduction.
There's just so many health risks associated with, spraying for pesticides and chemicals, synthetic fertilizers. It seems that the food soaks it up and you're intaking it into your body, so then you have it in you.
In 1962, Rachel Carson published The Silent Spring, warning consumers for the first time about the impact of agricultural chemicals on nature. In 1984, the release of an agricultural chemical in Bhopal, India, killed an estimated 250,000 people. The establishment of the Toxic Release Inventory in 1987 made consumers aware of the magnitude of chemical pollution in their communities. A grassroots environmental movement concerned about toxics emerged, and with it came a new interest in food produced without chemicals.
Because more and more we get exposed to chemicals that we're not even aware of, and so every opportunity I can take to reduce my own exposure to chemicals that could be detrimental, I will try to take those opportunities to do that.
I think if it's not food, don't eat it. And if you look at the back of processed food, there's things in there that were created in a laboratory. There's no monosodium glutamate tree out in the forest that we're going to go get our food from.
Sometimes I think we don't use enough common sense and just say, well, do we have to use those things? Can we have an alternative things?
In 1971, Robert Rodale coined the term regenerative agriculture to describe how organic farming could enhance soil quality while raising food. Farming that would respect nature and natural processes. These developments fueled a Back to the Land movement, committed to farming differently, a movement that continues today.
Close my eyes so I don't get hit.
Previous farmer had been a dairy farmer.
On Patrice and Bill Bobier's Earthscape Farm, a group of new farmers gathers to hear the lessons their hosts learned 30 years before.
Big consolidated structure looks like big crumbs underneath going to little crumbs going to little crumbs. We're some of those late 60s sort of folks that kind of looked at the way the world was running and decided that there were just too many toxins and agriculture was getting industrialized and the small is beautiful generation, and we had, you know, a hoe, a rake, a shovel, and 40 acres. And eventually we got a tri-belt rototiller too.
And small kids that we wanted to feed good food to.
Food allergies with our third son Joshua is what really got us jump-started into